what will happen next, we will actually have on the parallel session the better care, connecting metrics with decisions. So this will be happening in the parallel session. And here on the main stage, we will have tackling green with lean. So we have a full team, a very big international team, where we have people from Brazil, from Chile, from Singapore, United States, and Alistair there from Australia. So I will leave you guys here on stage for the next half an hour to talk about this theme. So Alistair, Bruno, hello. Olá.
Hello, Christopher, again. Hello, hola.
Hello. Well, welcome everyone. Thank you for being here. As Christopher said, we're going to present on how to use Lean in order to tackle sustainability problems. To give a little bit of context, we've been meeting for about maybe 4 years in order to make advancements in this field. In this presentation, we will cover a little introduction, then we'll make a little poll. We will present 2 very interesting examples of application, and finally share the results of the poll with you, and if there's enough time, probably answer a couple of questions, so feel free to ask questions through the Q&A section of Zoom application. Next slide, please. Okay, so a couple of numbers in order to understand the magnitude of the challenges we're facing. Since 1980, we've had approximately doubled the extraction of renewable and non-renewable sources, resources, approximately 60 billion tons. And regarding greenhouse gases, we've also increased in 100% the emissions, which has resulted in a raise of the global temperature in about 0.7 Celsius degrees. And if we think that these challenges are recent, in 2010, between 2.2 and 3.2 billion people lived under water stress at least 1 month a year. So we could fill lots of slides with this kind of statistics, but I think the message is clear. We better start moving soon, and we better start moving fast. Next one, please. So in order to address these challenges comes Lean and Green. What do we understand by Lean and Green? We understand improving our processes, but with an additional or a different perspective, which is the perspective of the environment and a social perspective. And in the same way that we define waste for classical Lean, to say it somehow, we can also define waste for Lean Green. We can define ways in which we can help. The first of these wastes is energy, which is the unnecessary use of energy and from sources that pollute the environment. The second one, which is regarding water, is the cost of unnecessary use of water and probably treatment costs for the water we use. The third one, which is materials, is a waste that arises from the flaws of design. When we design products, thinking on a cradle-to-grave design instead of a cradle-to-cradle design, and keeping the materials flowing in the economy for longer periods of time. The fourth one, which is garbage, is the cost of paying for something that we will finally throw away, and the cost of disposing this garbage also. And regarding transportation, is the cost of unnecessary transport and the impact that this transport produces in the environment due to the use of fossil fuels. Emissions is the cost caused by processes that produce emissions and could probably produce fines or cause fines for our companies. And the seventh is biodiversity, which can be caused in two ways. The first one is the direct destruction of resources, and the second one is the overexploitation of resources. So these are examples in which Lean Green can help tackle or help improve the environment, improve our processes from this different perspective.
Okay, okay, guys. So now I can see that some people are already answering our survey. We prepared a poll, and please, guys, you can check on your screen the option below, poll and quizzes, and we have 3 questions on which we would like to know your opinion, and we will back at the end to present the results. Okay, so please check if you can access the poll here, and we will back later to share with you the results. Or if you can scan with your camera the QR code, it's another option to get access to the poll. Okay, thank you.
Okay, thanks, Bruno. Yeah, and so as Marcelo has outlined, sustainability it's a big issue, and especially the climate change part. It's a problem that's not going anywhere, and and if anything, it's going to be getting worse. So a lot of companies have sustainability targets, the big ones for sure. The smaller ones are starting to do reporting, but they don't have a very clear idea of how they're going to get there. And that's where the Lean community can really help a lot with our problem-solving innovation abilities. So one of the things you can do, so Brian and I are going to go through a few things that you might think about to bring into your Lean work. One of them would be, like you see on the slide, is doing a workshop. That could be a training workshop or a facilitated workshop on a real problem to solve. What you see in the slide is a one-day training program that we've put together. It's been running for over a year, and we get participants that come and they learn how to basically do what we're talking about, bringing in some green into their Lean work. Alistair, can you go to the next slide? Yeah, and if you can do, this is the objective. If you can link these 3 things, right? So Lean thinking and practice, right, with actually improving the work, but also linking that to cost savings and carbon reduction, then you have a real winner. So in the training, we use something that's very simple for everyone to understand, which is a hamburger restaurant. Everybody can relate to hamburgers. So they go through a bunch of activities to see how they can actually improve the work, all the way from the kitchen, all the way to the counter to serve the burgers. And that's the way we've been running this training program. So I'll show you a couple of other things. Next slide. Thanks, Alistair. So everybody knows Tim Woods, right? Or whatever acronym you want to use. So one of the things you want to do is the things we know in Lean, such as the 8 types of waste, start looking through those through what you might think of as a green lens. You can click on the next slide, Alistair. So the little green, so the little green glasses. So whatever you're doing, right? And Brian will go through a few things as well. Do what you do what you know, but start looking and measuring in environmental factors. Okay? I'll give you guys a couple of things to think about, kind of a quiz. So the next slide, Alistair, is, and I think most of you know the 8 types of waste, but as a refresher, it's on the left side. So take a look at this picture. use the chat box. And if you look at the picture, right, so you have a few bars of soap, right, that are already in a cardboard packaging, and then they have then been put into a plastic bag. If you believe that that would be a waste, which waste do you think that would be? See if you can figure that out and put it in the chat box. Do you think it's transport? Do you think it's motion? Do you think it's overproduction? All right, so for anyone that thought that which one that would be, at least in my view, that would probably be over-processing. All right, more than it's needed to do the job. And what you'll see is for lean and green, over-processing is a really bad situation because that almost always leads to more energy used, and then that's always going to lead to more carbon or greenhouse gases released, right? So go to the next one, Alistair. See if you guys can figure this one out. And so this is showing a label that's off location. So let's just assume that it was something that it wasn't supposed to be like that. They have to throw it away, right? And then they have to make a new one. Which waste would that be? All right, this one's actually a little easier than the other one. So this one, you guys probably figured this out, would be the waste of a defect, right? And that's a really important one also for lean and green because defects can be directly related to carbon, right? So think of this, whatever this is, right? Yogurt or something. Let's say it's a defect, you have to throw it away. Well, then you have to make a new one to replace it, right? And then by the way, you also had to throw away the old one, which then becomes land waste. And then there's also a problem, right? So you've probably at least doubled the energy. And then that's going to also relate back to carbon again. So actually reducing improving the quality of the work can have a direct correlation to greenhouse gases. And once you figure that out, then you'd be able to apply that to a lot of things. Can you go to the next slide, Alistair? Right. So then the other topic that we do in the training, you can do this in your workshops as well, is take just a basic process map. It doesn't even really have to be a value stream map. And start measuring some green factors. For example, it could actually be carbon or some other greenhouse gas, or in any case, measure the quality. Because like we just said, if you can improve the quality, you'll be able to show, and in this case, we actually show the carbon footprint of one hamburger, it's called life cycle analysis. So once you get that number, then if you say, let's say in the training, they have a bunch of discarded burgers because they burned the burgers, they dropped the burgers, customer orders are not right. So by improving the process, the first time quality goes up, and then they can actually see a direct correlation with that and carbon reduction because there's a carbon per hamburger footprint. So if you click onto the next slide, Alistair, or just click once, and then you'll see, and then the teams basically come up with a better way of working, and then they can actually see exactly how that will impact carbon. So it's a great correlation, and of course it's all interactive, so they also have fun too. And then one more topic would be the spaghetti maps that a lot of us probably know. So also think about doing this with a green lens. And in this case, what they do, you probably can't see the whole picture, but basically that's a layout of the hamburger restaurant, including the kitchen and the preparation area all the way going to the counter. And by just using some basic 5S workplace organization, they figure out how to do the work better and actually use less space because there's a grid pattern on the layout. And then if you go to the next one, Alistair, then by just moving some things around, they figure out, so actually you might be able to make it out in the picture, but there's less space used because they've actually redesigned the workspace. The less space, they can calculate the utility cost that goes down. And then from the energy saved, they can also calculate, it's a rough calculation, but it's good enough. They can roughly calculate the carbon that's been reduced. And then by the end of the day, they basically get that correlation between improving the work and actually helping the environment, which is a great thing. So that's a few topics that I wanted to share. Brian's going to go through a few more with you.
Thanks, John. So another approach we can look at is Gemba walks, and we can apply a green lens to that as well. And I thought this is a cool way to help think about some of the things Marcelo mentioned earlier about waste. And we can use that acronym to explain different environmental impacts like water, air emissions, solid waste, toxins, and energy. So we already have this acronym in our heads. You can just apply it to your organization and think about where is the most opportunity that we can go after from a cost standpoint, from an impact perspective in these 5 areas. And that can help you focus in one of those areas and get started. So you could do an initial assessment of your organization or your facility and say, where of those 5 are the biggest opportunities for us? And then the next question is, well, what can we do to reduce the impacts in those areas? And so GE actually reached out to Toyota and said, we want to go tackle energy. And they developed this process called the Energy Treasure Hunt. And through the approach of using lean methods and Kaizen and going to the Gemba, they were able to conduct about 200 events with 3,500 employees, and they identified 500 Kaizen improvements or mini projects to run. The potential reduction, if they implemented all of those, would be about 700,000 metric tons of greenhouse gas emissions and about $111 million. And so when I was at Rockwell Collins, or now Collins Aerospace, we took that model and we applied that and did 6 different events like this. We called them Energy Go and See. But through those 6 events, we were able to engage employees in identifying energy reduction improvements and found about $200,000 of opportunity. So there's an article that will link to the GE Toyota collaboration around this. And then the EPA has some examples and data around the lean energy and climate toolkit that talks about this approach as well. So the energy treasure hunts is a way for employees and managers to walk around the Gemba together in their work area and identify how energy is being used, and use the Kaizen event format as a way to conduct that activity. And this is often areas that people don't always pay attention to or notice. A lot of times energy and water and these other impacts are happening near the Gemba, but they're not visible. They're inside the walls or inside the, or above in the ceiling or down underground. And so all we see is pipes or water lines and electrical outlets, but we don't think about the energy and the resources that go into our processes that are doing the value-added work. So through this approach, we can identify low-hanging fruit, which is a lot of the behavior-based activities. And that can help teams save energy in their area. And they're the ones who know that work and what things can be done easily and maybe some of the things that aren't as easy to implement. So what we're doing in these events is teaching and engaging the employees to understand the electric bill, the energy costs, the usage and the patterns over the year and throughout the week and month, identify goals. Maybe there's a company goal for cost reduction or energy reduction, and help come up with those opportunities. And it's a little different than an energy audit where you would have experts come in and look at equipment and say, this is outdated, or you could replace this. Those are usually capital intensive. Whereas the improvements that are identified here may not cost much money or very little or no cost at all. So here's a simple overview of that approach, and you'll see it looks similar to something you might have already done. The only twist is how we conduct the Gemba walks and what we do in that activity. So first thing first is get buy-in from leadership and explain, here's why we're doing this, and here's the business case, and this is the opportunity we have. And then find time to organize, schedule, or prioritize where you're going to focus your efforts. Maybe you pick one section of a building, or you work with a team that's really excited and engaged around this topic. Then we have the actual event, and we don't typically do 5 days. It might just be 2 days, and it's not always all day long. So the key is to observe the process during the Gemba, during value-added work happening, but also on the weekends, at night, during off shifts, because there's a lot of wasted energy and opportunities when work is not happening. And so it might be a Sunday night and a shift change on Monday and a shutdown on the weekend. So we look for those times to go do the Gemba walks. And then you bring the team back, identify all the opportunities, go through some kind of prioritization activity based on impact and effort, identify maybe 3 key actions that can be taken right away, and then continue to maybe implement others if you can get those 3 done, and track that for another 30, 60, 90 days. So the framework should look very similar to you, just like a traditional Kaizen event. And some of the things that were identified in these activities, there's a whole list here, but I'll highlight a couple of them. One is listening for air leaks. So if you have a compressed air system and you have leaks in the hoses, that will create continue to drive energy usage to keep pressure on the system. And based on the size of the air leaks, you can quantify how much energy you're wasting. And so when the building is quiet and people are gone, you can hear those air leaks really well. We also notice a lot of times that the temperature settings might not change or adjust whether people are there or not. So one of the projects I worked on that was a very big cost savings, we did a setback program and were able to turn the temperature down in the winter months because nobody was there, and let the temperature get a little hotter in the summer. And that led to significant savings, hundreds of thousands of US dollars a year. Also, just providing employees with power strips that allow them to just press one button and everything shuts off. Their monitor, their fan, their space heater, all those things with one button instead of having them go and click 5 different things. You know, trying to make it easy for people to do the right thing. And even looking at stuff like reducing the hot water usage by putting in low flow aerators. There's a lot of energy that is used to heat up hot water. And so the less we can consume, the more energy savings there is.
Thanks, Brian. Some really good practical and low cost examples there, really helping us tap into the enthusiasm for of many employees that want to make some progress in this area. So we'd like to share the poll results. Bruno, if you're able to share that.
Yeah. I'll share my screen, Alistair. So, are you able to see?
Yes, great, thank you.
Okay.
So you can see on that first question, most people have said very important, and that's aligns with some surveys that have been done recently. One survey of 500 executives from Fortune 1000 companies, 87% of the executives identified sustainability and environmental, social, and governance initiatives as very to extremely important to their business's long-term success. So that's pretty similar to the results that we've got here. Bruno, if you can scroll down a bit to the next question. So the next question really goes from how important to how well are we doing? Are we implementing that ambition? And you can see here that the full ambition hasn't quite been translated into action. Most people have answered actively working towards, but no formal programs. Although a pleasing number have said they're fully committed with formal programs. So that's a really good result, and it's actually better than a McKinsey study that I found, and that shows that only 30% of executives believe that sustainability being well integrated into their performance management systems. So perhaps the Lean community is doing a little bit better. And I suppose that's really the strength of Lean, isn't it? Taking that ambition and actually driving it through to results within our organizations. And if you would scroll down a little bit, the final question was really a question that we really wanted your feedback, because this group, with a few others, meets regularly, and we would like to put on some webinars with some more depth in some of these areas. The ones that scored very high were, the business case was the top one. So how do you build those business cases? And I suppose the good news, particularly in energy, is that the economics and the desire for reduced electricity usage are really giving some pretty good paybacks. My organization's implemented solar recently with a very good payback. So that's the business case, and then the second one there was value stream mapping. So we are looking to put on some webinars that will dive into these topics in a bit more detail in the first quarter. And I might just go back to sharing my screen. So if I go back to this, what we've got here is another QR code that if you are interested in attending any such webinars, you are most welcome. And it'll be ask you for an email and also any other topics that you're interested in.
Alistair can see your screen, but it's not, the content's not there, at least for me.
Apologies for that.
Says Alistair Lee has started screen sharing.
Yeah, well,
What is
it
that?
seems like it's charging the image, Alistair. Yeah. If you can share again, please.
I'll reshare, sorry.
I think you need to start sharing again. Yeah.
Can you see that one now?
Yeah.
Just came up. Good.
Okay, so perhaps I throw to the other. We've got a couple of minutes left, and anyone has any questions, please?
Alistair?
Yep.
Alistair, sorry, you said a couple of minutes. Actually, you have a couple of seconds.
Seconds,
My
sorry.
recommendation would be start to wrapping up. You have actually 30 seconds.
All right. Thanks, Christopher. Yeah, so thank you to all the presenters today. Some really good examples, and we're really keen on seeing this community grow, and please come along to our future webinar. Thank you.
Okay. Okay, thank you guys. Thank you
Thank
for
you.
sharing about green with lean. And now